GHRT Rewinds are brought to you by Laughlin and Wolfington Team. Your home sold guaranteed realty. Find out what your home is worth online instantly at LaughlinWolfingtonRealty.com. This is the George Hale, Rick Tyler Show. From Moving Mountains Mental Health, Emma Swift in our studio. You had said to us that there is some focus, some passion, some need to talk about the mental health and the care for first responders in our states.
Yes. So recently I was made aware of a program that we have going on in the Penobscot County called the Penobscot County Peer Support Program. And they basically mimicked this program that started down in southern Maine, down in Portland area, where they started doing the same thing to provide peer support to our first responders, which I think is an incredibly important area that, especially given the state of everything that's going on in this state in our country right now, I think it puts a lot of pressure on our first responders. And especially since COVID, with like our EMTs, our firefighters, and our police officers. And historically, not a lot of support for mental health. I think historically, it's seen as one of those, you don't talk about it, kind of similar to the military, like you don't talk about mental health. Yep. But you're seeing some of the most horrid things day in and day out. So I felt kind of called to get involved when I found about this program. So part of that process, for anybody who's listening who might be interested, they're looking for more first responders to join the team as well as mental health professionals. And part of that process is you need to go do some sort of ride along and shadow in the first responder community. So I started by doing a shadow at 911 dispatch in Penobscot County, which for those of you who don't know, Penobscot County dispatch is the busiest one in the entire state.
Yep, we've heard that.
And it's true. Even on a slow afternoon when I was there, it was incredible what they were doing just in that 4.5 hours that I was there. And then I had the pleasure recently, last weekend, I got to go do a ride along in Hamden with Hamden PD. And I got to learn like a lot just about the basic. He drove around and told me about like where he goes and what he's doing and what he's thinking about while he's on the job. And his focus is really community relations. And I don't know if a lot of people know that our cops are really, really focused on trying to build better communities. And so that's what I've been doing recently in the process of applying to be a part of the Penobscot Peer Support Team.
I asked a policeman one time I knew quite well, what is the most difficult thing that happens?
Good question.
And he said, if I had to say one thing, he said, arriving at somebody's door, 2 o'clock in the morning, knocking on the door, the mother opens the door, you don't say a word and she collapses because she knows why you're there.
Right. To tell you somebody
happened, it happened.
Yeah.
You never get over it.
No. Nope. And they do that sometimes, and depending on where they are, sometimes they do that very often.
Yeah.
And they bear witness to the worst of humanity. Every single day they're bearing witness to, people at their absolute lows, people breaking the law, or people who are just in an emergency situation their life is in danger. Not always because people are breaking the law. It's more often like something's happened, a car accident, your house is on fire, there's a shooting.
As we often say, nothing good happens at 2 o'clock in the morning.
No.
Jason O'Campbell has often sat in the very chair that you're sitting in, and the Bangor Police Department Sergeant has said to us that in law enforcement, you're often dealing with someone on the worst day of their life.
Yep.
And it takes someone with a special head and a special heart in order to be that person that will be there to help or have to deal with that person on the worst day of their life.
Yep. I think, so one of the sergeants that I shadowed, he told me that he really knew that mental health needed to be different after being in this field for 20 years. He said that he really wants people in the first responder community to ask for help and reach out. And he talked to me about, and I'm not going to go into the details because it's not my story, but he told me a story in which he felt as though like he needed that support, but it wasn't there. And this was a long time ago. And that was when he realized, like, there needs to be something better. He said, because all I would have needed in that moment was someone like you to just talk me through what I had experienced, so that I could then like go home and just be okay again. And so my goal is, and what I've told everyone who I've come into contact since I started doing this, is my ultimate goal is to let everyone know in the Penobscot County that this program exists. And there are people who within 72 hours, more often from what I've heard, a lot sooner, can be boots on the ground in Penobscot County anytime basically you need. So if you are a first responder and you need help, or you need someone to talk to, like, please reach out, because we are here and we are trained, and we are being trained to specifically to respond to critical incidents, provide support to first responders, understand the culture. I'm going to a training that my friend Wally Frazier is putting on next month. That's about the culture of working with first responders and mental health. And so I just want people to know that this is out there, and that I'm in the process of becoming part of the team, and I'm hoping that it will grow and expand so that people have that support.
I often see the helicopter fly over, and I know where they're going. They're not flying to practice. They're going somewhere. Mm-hmm. And how difficult that job is, because they're going to a trauma scene somewhere.
Yeah, you mean like life flight?
Yeah, life flight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And highly trained they are. Mm-hmm. I've never been there, but I'm familiar with them, and they're the best.
I actually know a life flight nurse. It's an incredibly intense job.
Mm.
Yeah.
We know that Captain Dustin Smiley, I think Captain is his rank, now flies for Life Flight. Sarah Smiley, the journalist and the author, friend of the program. And something that Dustin explained to us is, if you are a pilot for Life Flight, they do not give you any information about the patient.
Wow. You just fly the plane.
So you don't become that white knight, okay? It's a child. I've got to do everything to save, or it's a woman, or it's
right. You follow protocol.
Exactly.
Which must be incredibly challenging.
One of our very good friends in our program, Dan Frizzell, and this is a trip down the corridor of time. And when there was a shooting on Interstate 95 in I believe it was the northbound lane, back in the 1980s. And it was something and Dan has talked very openly about this, that it was just too traumatizing. And he pivoted his position within the police department to become the DARE officer.
Yeah.
And focused all of his time and all of his talents there.
Yeah.
The other topic that comes to mind is the discussions on our program from state lawmakers in wanting to find much of the revenue necessary for better support for health insurance and mental health services and health services for law enforcement within the sale of medical and recreational marijuana in our state. And we're watching that. I do not know what happened with that in the 131st. I'd have to do a search on that. But when we talked about it with law enforcement, with first responders, they said, thank you for someone for even noticing the need.
Yeah.
How involved is the program that you're going to be getting involved in?
As of right now, I think it's still building and growing. Mm-hmm. They do have a Facebook page. It's Penobscot County Peer Support Team. And like I said, I think they're still very much in the recruiting, but they do have people who are responding in Penobscot County to critical incidents, because I reach out to Wally quite often, and he'll be like, yep, peer support, already checked in on that. Mm-hmm. So they're fairly involved in this area, but like I said, still kind of building, growing kind of thing.
But it's working in southern Maine.
There is a program. There's a different program that started in southern Maine, and I think we kind of like emulated that. We were like, we're going to try to recreate that here in this county, is the idea. And actually, I was going to ask Wally to see if I could get some information on the Portland one, because I couldn't find any in my research when I was looking. That doesn't mean it's not out there. It just means I don't know where to look.
I would think that every county needs this program.
I think so too. And the one thing that I do know about state insurance benefits, for example, because I work with insurance, state of Maine employees, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but if you are a state of Maine employee, government employee, your health insurance covers mental health counseling services at 100%, meaning you don't have to pay a copay. I work with a lot of state employees, and every single one of them has 100% covered services. So I believe that also includes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, I don't know if you know, but I think our police officers are considered state employees. They're definitely government employees. They're paid by the government. Yeah. But I believe they have the same benefits, because when my dad worked up at Charleston, and he was a state of Maine employee who had state of Maine health insurance benefits. But I do know you and if you don't know, then you can call your insurance to verify. But I am fairly certain that any state of Maine employee, which should include most of our law enforcement, should have access to mental health services at no extra cost. which is one good thing, but then people have to be able to find someone who knows, because they're not going, especially in the first responder community, they may not just go to just any counselor.
Right.
They would prefer to go to one who knows what they're talking about or has experience working with first responders.
And now this brings us to a point that we have discussed with you and how you and I met. Do we have the counselors? Do we have the staff in place to assist the first responders who, one, deserve and two, need these services?
I don't think it's quite there yet. No. In my opinion.
Yeah.
I think there are resources, and I know that there are people who are contracted with local law enforcement or contracted with local first responders where they offer that after critical incidents where you can meet with someone to check in. I just feel like more on a ongoing, regular, routine basis, our resources need growth. We need more support. We need more resources. And I feel like a peer support where there isn't as much red tape, right? We don't have to, if I want to start seeing somebody, I have to check their insurance. I have to do paperwork. I have to get them entered in a system. I have to go over an assessment. Mm-hmm. And there are certain papers that I have to have signed the day that I see someone,
right, or
I can't see them. With peer support, it's hey, we have this team of people who are volunteering. It's a 3-year volunteer. You have to volunteer for 3 years when you're part of the program. Mm-hmm. And you have to, give them your availability and say, what are you available for as far as responding to critical incidents? And the idea being that at any given moment, we can have boots on the ground as quickly as possible when someone needs it without having to worry about jumping through all that red tape to get them into services. And then part of Penobscot peer support might be, hey, if you want ongoing services, now that you've reached out to us, we can help you find someone to meet with on a regular basis and help you navigate the red tape.
GHRT Rewinds are brought to you by Laughlin and Wolfington Team, your home sold guaranteed realty. Find out what your home is worth online instantly at laughlinwolfingtonrealty.com.